Spurs win! Spurs win! Welcome back, Spurs fans, to the Hepler football channel. Today, we're doing our post-match ponderings. We're going to talk about the match against the Tottenham Hotspurs and the Watford on Sunday. And we're going to look at how that match went. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. And heading into the international break, we're going to talk about also what all this means and what things look like going forward a little bit. So with that win, Spurs are in first place. So they're sitting top of the table. Nice. The only team that has collected 9 points this season. That's really good. So we won our first 3 matches. We have yet to concede a goal. And that is the first time in Spurs history that we've won our first 3 matches and haven't conceded a goal in our first 3 matches. So, we're setting some new record here. That puts us in good position for this international break that just started after all the matches from this weekend, and gives us an opportunity to try to let Nuno implement some more things and things that he wants to see done. This match has been very similar to the first 2 matches. We haven't looked dominant. We get an opportunity and we kind of put that away, take that opportunity, and that's about all we're accomplishing. And we're pitching shutouts. But there's nothing here saying that, we're on fire, that we're going to set the world on fire and we're going to run away with the Premier League at this point. When looking at the match, the first half was probably the most difficult half for us. They were challenging us in many different aspects, especially when they were going forward. They had a lot of pace and size up front when they were pushing up their midfielders into the front lines. And so that caused us some issues, but that's typically what causes us issues. And so, the first half was a little shaky, even though we got the goal. I would say the first half was probably the most shaky half that we had. The second half, we kind of settled in. They weren't getting as many opportunities, and just felt like we were a little more in control. Although I would say you couldn't just absolutely say that we had this wrapped up and there was no concerns throughout the second half. But you could see us starting to dominate a little, not necessarily dominate, but control the match a little better. One thing that I did notice is that we had 10 corners. And gosh, that's a lot of corners for a match. And to see that we come out with such little productivity out of 10 corners was kind of disheartening. I think Son puts in the best ball for us most of the time. But I think too many times we're going to the well of, the near post. I would imagine, I haven't counted it all up, but I would imagine that 60-70% of those corners were short post placements, which, if you keep just doing the same thing, it's going to be easier and easier to defend for the other team. So I think we need a little more creativity or options within our corner set pieces. So, but so, we got the win. It's great for us moving into the international break here. So ponder upon this. So we got off to a great start this season. Last season we did the same thing. We actually had a long stretch in the first 9 to 12 matches where except for that first match, we lost the first match against Everton leading off the season. But beyond that, after that, we didn't lose a game for another 10 matches or so. And so we got a great start last season. First place going into mid-December. And then by the end of December, we were in 7th. So is this a repeat? Are we getting just off to another good start? And are things going to kind of come true here in a month or two? That's something to be thinking about. So think about that. So here we're going to talk about our good, the bad, and the ugly. And just a reminder a little bit, the good is, we're going to talk about things that we saw that were good in the match, that can be players, tactics, just anything within the flow of the game. And when those things will be good. Then we'll talk about the bad, which bad's kind of middle of the road, really. I mean, it's called bad, but it's not necessarily the worst thing. So, that's kind of middle road, definitely things that need to be worked on. And then ugly is just, why was this done? Why was this player there? What were we doing there? That's where ugly comes in. So we're going to start off with the good. So we're going to ponder upon the good. And as we go through, let me know what you all think. Make comments on what we discuss here. Let's have a conversation. And if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe. Support the channel. I definitely appreciate it. Want to build a nice, large community here where we can all engage with each other and have thoughtful debate on the team that we love so much. And don't forget to hit that like button. So my first good is Song. I think Song had a pretty good game. I don't think anyone had an outstanding game in this match, but I thought Song played well. He, that where he got that goal, even though it wasn't a shot on that penalty outside the box that he put into it was in such a dangerous position that they had difficulty dealing with it. And that's what a good penalty taker does, is it puts a lot of pressure on that defense and the goalie. And he did that. And we got the result that we needed. We were needing to get a goal, and we got a goal. And it ended up being the goal that wins us the match. And that's what we needed. He was also very active. He played on the right side this match. He was very active out there on the right. I thought he played well, considering that's not where he usually plays and everything. I thought he was very active and engaged. And one thing that I did notice a lot is that he and Tanganga actually had really good interaction and link-up play out there. It's the most engaged I've seen Tanganga in the offense with Son being out there on that right side. Because to me, Son's a little more head up, looking around, where when Mora's out there, he's looking to drive at people and just take people on most of the time. And so he loses sight of those people around him quite often. So, but Son was my first good. My second good was Bergwijn. I thought Bergwijn actually had a pretty solid match here. In my opinion, he was our most active offensive player. He drew the foul that led to the goal that gave us that penalty kick just outside the box. And he was actually the only real player that I could say with regularity that was looking to take players on, even beyond Song, in my opinion, in this match. So he was the one that was trying to break down the other team, trying to cause issues other than just wheeling the ball around the horn outside the 18 20 times and then coming up with no result. He was actually trying to do things and trying to cause havoc within the Watford defensive line and midfield. And I thought he did a pretty good job of it too. And so he was my second good. My third good is Højbjerg. I don't really have a man of the match for this one. I didn't think anyone was strong enough. But if there's person that I would probably say was man, it'd probably be Højbjerg. He locked down that midfield. He was a solid rock. He was doing a great job. Him and Skip have really developed a good combination of protecting our two center backs. They're that buffer. They let very little get behind them and keep protection on those two center backs, which is the weakest point in our entire team by far. It's not even a question. But he's had a great match there protecting them. I also thought he was our most creative midfielder, which is, it's great in the aspect that he's not truly a creative midfielder, but it's also sad because he's not a creative midfielder and he's our most creative midfielder. So, good on him. He was looking to, he was making good passes, head up, looking forward all the time. And he did do that in the Euros with Denmark. And so it's, something that's within his game that is not his primary focus, but it's something he can do if needed on occasion. And we're going to need it because we don't have, at this point, the other midfielders are not showing enough creativity and link up play with the forwards to cause issues for the opposing side. So he is going to have to kind of be that creative guy until we can figure that out elsewhere. So those are my goods. Let me know what yours are. And we're going to move into the bad now. Remember, we're going to ponder upon the bad. This is not the worst. This is kind of middle of the road, but definitely things we need to work on. And so my first bad is Harry Kane. Not often does Kane make it into the bad or below category, but he did not look fit and ready to go for this match. He looked very lethargic and slow, and he just did not look like he had the touch and the feel for the ball in the match, for the entire match. There was very few occasions that I felt like he was actually Kane, like we expect Kane, like we know what Kane can do, and just what he is on a day in and day out basis. So I think he's definitely lacking in some fitness and some technical sharpness at this point. And hopefully over this international break, we can build that back in, build him up and get him back into that mode. The other thing that I noticed with Kane is there was not a lot of fluidity with him and the frontline players, Bergwijn and Song. It became a very slow, stagnant attack that was being utilized for Spurs, where the previous two matches, at least, with Song, Bergwijn, and Mora, it was a very more fluid, interchanging, and aggressive attack. And we would attack with aggression and actually maneuverability and creativity. This was very slow, static, and very predictable. We were extremely predictable, just like we have been most matches when Kane's been in there, and going back to the last year and even before. But, with Kane, he is the best striker in the league, if not the entirety of Europe, but he does limit us in some aspects. And that's something that's going to have to be figured out. We can't have this slow, pragmatic build up to our attacks. That's not how we're built. That's not the way we function the best. And once they pack in, we can't break them down. We just don't have those 1v1 players in our squad to break down 2 or 3 players in the defense once they're packed in. Now, Moore can do it from extended circumstances where he has room to run and at people, and there's a lot of space to maneuver in and around and behind the midfield and defense. But if it's all packed in, he can't do that. It's very limiting on what he can do. And so that's where I was with Kane. I didn't think he had a good match myself. It definitely has room to improve, and we really need to consider what are we going to do with the lineup with Kane's in there. My second bad, Sanchez. Where Sanchez is usually in my ugly category, he's actually improved, but he still was not good. He did have one really good block, but he still has significant trouble dealing with strong and pacey center forwards. So early on, especially early on in the match, that first half, I felt like their center forward was just having his way with Sanchez. And we saw the same issue with Jimenez. We didn't see it in the Man City match because Man City doesn't have a center forward. They basically played not even a false 9. They played more of Torres was a 10 almost, and played very loosey-goosey and didn't do anything up front and put pressure on Dyer or Sanchez. And we're going to see more and more actual center forwards within teams, and it's going to continue to show it's a problem for Sanchez, because the thing with him too is he gets poorly positioned often, and he just has not seemed to learn how to deal with those situations. It's the same errors and issues from last season that have continued into this season. While we still have not conceded a goal, he still continues to have the same errors. In this match, he still had more negative actions from watching the match than positives. And so just because it hasn't cost us yet, or it hasn't been an issue yet, does not mean that the issue is not there still. The biggest problem I find is that, we've had these same issues for an entire year now, all last year and going into this season. And he does not correct, those issues are not being corrected. It's just we have not been hurt by them yet. And so I think Sanchez is still not, a lot of people said he had a good match. I don't see it. We could have given up a number of opportunity, even greater opportunities. Just because a team is not putting away chances that are created by either Dyer, Sanchez, or whoever, does not mean those errors did not happen. And that's what I look at within a match too. A lot of times it's not, okay, what's the result? It's what led up to that issue, or why did they have that opportunity. It's not just looking at did they score or not, and then just chuck it aside if they didn't score. Well, that's not how you should evaluate things. It should be, is this a recurring continuous issue, and is it being corrected? And in this instance, I would say Sanchez is not correcting his issues and errors. They're just not costing us at this point. So he's one of my bads. Skip is one of my other bads, so he's my third bad. As I've been saying this whole time with Skip, he's still learning a lot. I feel like he's really in his head. He's not quite as fluid and quick as he should be, because he's having to think through things a lot more than just having muscle memory taking over, and everything just flows like real smooth and nicely. But one of the things that seems to be an issue that's happening with him is he's giving away a number of PKs right around that 18-yard box, about 18 to 20 yards out from the goal. And he's done it not only this match a couple of times, but in the previous two matches too. And this is going to come back and bite us here sooner or later. And so Skip just kind of needs to get himself right and get him. And it's not that he's played terrible matches. He's not been a bad player. He's still young. He's still learning, developing. I give him quite a bit more latitude than I would other players such as Dyer, Sanchez, Højbjerg even. He's just really starting to play in the Premier League. He's got his first 3 starts in this season in the Premier League. So, but another thing, as I said with Højbjerg, he and Højbjerg are creating a nice little buffer most of the time against this opposing side and our center backs. There are occasions when things cause our center backs issues, and that's what I've been talking about with Sanchez. But for the most part, I think they've done a great job, and that's why we're pitching to these shutouts, these first 3 matches, is because of what Højbjerg and Skip are doing there. He needs to continue. He has grown over this compared to the previous 2 matches to be looking more forward and making his passes and such. And so that's just the progression he needs to continue. So I think he's moving in the right direction. He's just not quite there yet. And he just needs more time and more consistency in his play and what he's doing. But he did make it into the bad because of some of those issues that caused them to have significant opportunities. But I don't think he'll be there for long in this bad category. I think he'll start moving either, maybe not in the good, but definitely not being called out in the bad or category anymore. But at least he's progressing in the right direction, where Sanchez, I'd say, is not so much. My fourth bad. Amazing we won this game, right? My fourth bad is Dyer. Right out the gate, Dyer nearly gives up a goal in the very first minute because of a poor decision on what he was doing with the ball inside the 6-yard box. He decided to clear it back out towards the penalty spot when he could have easily punched it out the end line and given up, at worst, a corner kick, and maybe even got it out to the sideline to where it would have been just a throw-in. But he decided to kind of just be cute about it and drop it back to about the 10, 12-yard spot, just outside, just out there where the penalty spot is. And that gave them a huge opportunity. Now, he did make a significant block on that shot, but the great block was caused because he made a terrible decision and a poor play. And, making a great play because you did something bad does not bode well. They should have been up 1-0, let's say. I mean, it's just what it is. They should have been 1-0 in the first minute and a half. But we got lucky and it didn't bite us. But this is kind of the same recurring thing we see with Sanchez. These are still continuous errors we see with Dyer that are not being corrected, making poor decisions, poor clearances, poor mistakes, poor ball handling. I mean, it's not like these things are being corrected. So he had a few mistakes throughout the match. Now, he wasn't, again, terrible or anything. He's moved off the ugly snide that he's been on for 2 weeks now, in my opinion. But sooner or later, these mistakes that Dyer and Sanchez continue to make, and they usually make them in our box or around our box to give opponents opportunities, are going to come back and bite us. We can't continue to play like this and expect to hold up for an entire season. It's not going to happen. And last season actually kind of proves that through. We went a while doing well, succeeding, and then when things started to actually come to fruition, when teams weren't failing on their opportunities, that's when we started going on our downward spiral and we ended up finishing 7th. So you can't say that these two are not still issues because they're not correcting those problems. And that's my 4th bad. So I got one more bad. And this will probably be all kinds of controversial and everything. But, if you watch my preview ponderings or my predicted ponderings prior to the match, it kind of speaks about some of this, why I think this is a bad. So my last bad, this is my 5th bad, is Nuno. The lineup was not right, and mainly because he included Dele Alli. And Dele Alli, for me, while he did have a little bit better match in the second match, which is not saying a lot because he did pretty much absolutely nothing in the first match, he only really did something for about 15-20 minutes in that second match. He was, terribly poor in this match, in my opinion. And he's just not shown enough to be able to play in that spot where Nuno has him. And in my opinion, it should have been someone else, a Lo Celso, Heel, or even Bergwijn. Push Bergwijn back and then start Mora out on the right and keep Son on his left side. He's just not doing enough for us. Ali isn't. And so by him continuing to put Ali in there when he really doesn't produce anything for any tangible amount of time, and even when he does do something, it's for a very limited amount of time and often doesn't get us something in result, that's a poor decision. And I guess my frustration too is, these players are the same players that we've had really for the past 2 to 3 years. As a manager, and this I would say this for not Punch, but Jose and Nuno, I understand you want to give players a fresh start and whatnot when you come in. But the fact of the matter is you have a track record of these players too, of what they are and what they do. And you have to take that into account. And if you're just kind of washing away everything they were prior to you arriving, you're being a little bit delusional, in my opinion. And that's not fair, not only to the other players, but to the team and, everyone that supports the team as well. You've got to take all the evidence that's available and use that to make the right decisions. And I don't think he's making the right decision with Dele Alli, in my opinion. He's not as bad as he was under Jose, but he's not producing still. And he looks, we'll get into Dele here in a minute, but that was my big one. One of my big ones for Nuno. Next is the subs. The first sub should have been Dele Alli. If you didn't take him off at halftime, you only give him like 5-10 minutes to see what he's doing, which again was absolutely nothing, and then you got to get him out. For him to stay in the entire match and not get subbed is not right. We're not handling our squad properly, in my opinion, if that's the fact. And bringing out Bergwijn, who was our most active player, who just kind of played for a little bit in the midweek match, I think that was a poor decision, because I think we could have maybe pushed and put away second goal with Bergwijn in there. If you want to bring, if I would have brought off KANE before Bergwijn, in my opinion, from watching that match and everything and seeing what KANE was contributing, because and then put more in and let the three that have been successful the previous two matches go at it for a little bit. But that, I think, was a poor sub. So his subs, I think, were a little questionable, and who he subbed off, how in the way he did things. But one thing I will say for Nuno is the players do look fit. I don't think subs were absolutely necessary for anyone that he subbed off. Everyone looks like they can go 90 minutes right now, except for KANE, of course. I spoke about that already. But barring KANE, I think everyone looks pretty fit right at this point in time. And so that's a positive, I would say. So, but those are my bads. 5 of them. That's a lot. With a win, I think that, And then now we're going to move into the ugly. We're going to ponder upon the ugly. Let me know what you think is ugly. But my ugly, I got an ugly here. Start off with Ali. I kind of already talked about it a little bit, but in my opinion, Dele was not even part of the match that affected anything positively. He was giving the ball away too much, which has always been an issue for him. And apparently he's not correcting that issue. He provided no quality in attack or defense, so he really wasn't helping the attack. He wasn't helping the defense. At one point in time, now listen to what I'm saying here. At one point in time, Dele got worked over while he was defending Sissoko. Sissoko took Dele to town attacking. It was just mind-boggling how bad Dele was at defending against Sissoko, who is not an offensive player. And it made Dele look silly. I mean, Sissoko really did. And then, oftentimes he looks lost out there when he's on the pitch. I get it. Granted, this is kind of a new position for him, kind of more of an 8 or a deeper midfielder. But he really looks lost, and it doesn't matter whether it's in the defense or the offense, what he's supposed to do. So he's often late to everything, whether it's defensively or offensively, in my opinion. So Dele, in my opinion, really should not be starting any match or anything. He should be just kind of as a sub, and then try someone else. Try a different formation. And that was the other thing with Nuno too. I didn't like how he pushed us. He was pushing us forward too much, in my opinion, in the formation. We should have stayed a little tighter, defended from about the midline back instead of pushing up to their, 25, 30 yard out from their goal. Because we hadn't done that yet this season. And I think part of our issues in the first half were that we were overstretching ourselves, not staying compact, and that's what partially caused issues for Dyer and Sanchez early on. But that's my good, bad, and the ugly. So let's just kind of run through those again real quick. So my goods, we're looking at Song, Bergwijn, Højbjerg. If you want to call a man of the match, which I don't really think there is a man of the match, but Højbjerg would be mine. The bads, KANE, Sanchez, Skip, Dyer, and Nuno. And then my ugly, which is Ali. So, we got the international break here. We are in first place. We're going to be in first place for at least a couple weeks now. Woohoo! Take a look at this. I'm not big on comparing ourselves to rivals, especially when the rivals really aren't at our level. But hey, Arsenal is at the bottom of the barrel, people. They are the worst team in the Premier League at this point in time, with no wins, giving up the most goals. It's kind of interesting. And then we have when we come back from international break, we'll be kicking off with the Crystal Palace match. Crystal Palace has never been an easy match for us. They usually fight us pretty good. And then we'll be moving into Chelsea, and then Wolverhampton again in the Carabao Cup, and also within starting off September, we're going to be getting back into the Conference League matches. So, we got a lot coming up. I think there's still a lot of issues to iron out and straighten out. Does not look like we're going to really get anything handled to finish off this transfer window. So, it's we have the team we have, and we got to make the most of it. And I think Nuno is on track with doing much better than Jose did, at least at this point. We look like we play more as a team. We look fit. So 2 things right there, right off the bat, I think gives us a better chance in any match over what Jose was doing to set us up. And there's opportunity here. It's just going to, seeing all the other teams though too, for us to really push into top 4 would be a monumental feat, I think, especially with the Chelsea, Man City, Man U, Liverpool sitting up there. They're still 3 or 4 of the strongest teams in the league. You have to argue that, regardless of us being in first place at this point in time. But let's enjoy it. Enjoy this moment in time, to bask in the glow a little bit, and hopefully Nuno can continue to mold and develop this team into something that's a little bit more solid and structurally sound, especially in that back line. And a little more time with Romero, and hopefully Rodon will get healthy and we can have those 2 as actual options. Then we don't have to rely on Darren Sanchez the entirety going forward. But let me know what y'all think, and come on, you Spurs!